the Campus News brought to you by VUTV. I'm your host Pruthviraj, and this week we are traveling a different road. Of course, what's trending, what's writing the news blogs is no surprise. The Union Budget 2021-22 that was announced earlier this week on Monday, 1st of February, and we have to tell you, it was right at the beginning of the announcement. A significant change came about as the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman unveiled a Make in India tablet to present the budget. Now this was instead of the traditional briefcase or even the Bahi Khata, the Swadeshi Bahi Khata that was previously introduced. Lo and behold, we must also inform you that well under a week, this budget is already being hailed as one of the most, if not the most resourceful ones, especially with the pandemic at the backdrop and the much needed economic recovery from the corona year at the epicenter. But despite all the big talks, the developments, and even the elaborate announcements and its implications, there still, however, are scores of Indians, perhaps even likes of you and I, who barely understand a word of this announcement. Now, we also have to tell you that due to the whims of the internet today, we are forced to just nod our head at everything that we are told. But not to worry, because this week's episode of the Campus News is primarily focused on the Union Budget. Yes, right just about now, we are going to be joined by a special guest who is going to help us crack this hard nut. You do not want to miss this one. Stay right with us. Stay here on the Campus News. Well, hello guys. As promised earlier, we have our special guest right about now. Let me introduce you all to Dr. Sangita Gupta, Professor of Economics and the Chairperson of Center for Research at JagSom School of Management, Bangalore. Now, Dr. Sangita has many accolades and achievements to her name, but what stands out, and this mind you is from students' perspective, is that she is very much in touch with the pulse of students, considering the fact that she is an imperative part of their world and has been for very many years now. Alright, first of all, thank you ma'am for joining us, and it's an honor for me to welcome you to the Campus News by VUTV. This is an initiative for students, and I'll have to tell you at the beginning that we have constructed this episode around the context of the Union Budget that was announced recently, which is why on behalf of all the students, I request you right about now to give us an understanding of the Union Budget 2020. Over to you.
Thank you, Pruthviraj. To talk about Indian budget, we have to look at what was the condition of Indian economy even before the pandemic. The economy was actually not in very good shape even before the pandemic. And during the pandemic, of course, it was a big blow, with the GDP contracting by 23.9% in the first quarter and by 7.5% in the second quarter. So this budget was very, very important. In many, many years, probably, we're all looking forward to the budget because this budget was important to put the economy back on track. So considering the constraints that the finance minister was facing and considering the state the Indian economy was in, I would rate this as a good budget. The budget actually focused on a few things. One, of course, is the health and well-being. Second, physical and financial capital and infrastructure, innovation and research and development, human capital, and of course, inclusive development. So these are the main pillars of the budget. Regarding health and well-being, it's important that it was required also that the health expenditure should go up, and there's a increase of 137% in the health expenditure and 35,000 crore for COVID-19 vaccine, which is very, very important in considering the situation we are in. Now, I'm very impressed with the increase in physical and financial capital and infrastructure outlay, because that is very important for development of any economy. And human capital also, the number of schools have increased, higher education commission has been set up. So basically we are looking at human capital aspect also. If we look at other aspects like the increase in allocation for MSME sector, then Startup India allocation for women, SC and ST. So Now, another thing which is very very important for me is that of all the sector, the one sector which was doing well and was the single line was the agriculture sector. So I'm happy that government has taken steps to increase the rural infrastructure, and also micro irrigation outlay has gone up. And yes, given the current agitation by the farmers, the fact that MSP is now 1.5% of the cost of production is also very very good. So these are some very good things about the budget, and I also would like to rate the budget well, because it has also looked at some of the important environmental aspects as well. So health and well-being, physical and human capital, innovation and R&D. So these are the pillars which the budget focused on. But is there any area for worry, concern? Yes, of course. Couple of things. One, Indian economy basically is consumption driven, and during the pandemic, because of loss of jobs, salary cut, the income went down, and that kind of affected the consumption. So no change in income tax. Maybe some changes could have been better. Another worrying factor, of course, is very very high fiscal deficit. The revised estimate is 9.5% of GDP. The budget estimate is 6.8, where the government is thinking of bringing it down to 4.5% by 2025-26. But what I feel is that very high fiscal deficit is never good for any economy. But given the current situation, the constraints, I think this is a good budget. Thank you.
Alright, we heard from Dr. Sangita Gupta, the professor of economics, and what she had to say about the union budget. Well, she has rated the overall budget as a pretty good one, and she has also elaborately touched upon all the sectors where the investments have been done. But hold just a minute. This is the campus news, this is for the students, so we figured, how about we get a student to share a thought or two about the union budget 2021-22, which is why we have a representative of the student body, one Mr. Prabudh Mishra, student of finance, who is going to share his understanding of the union budget. Alright, hi Prabudh, welcome to Campus News. Now, we both know every year when the budget is announced, since I'm talking to a student's representative, do you think, honestly, whether or not students are invested in the idea of budget? Are they concerned about the budget, or are they invested in the idea of what's being announced, the aspects of the finances? What do you think?
So the plain and simple answer to this is the students or my peers are completely not interested in knowing the budget and all. And there's a major reason behind it, and the reason is that they don't have the understanding of technicalities, which is driven by the fact that they basically don't know how the budget impacts their life. So they don't want to learn anything about it. That's all from my side.
So do you think there is any possibility in near future that students especially would be invested with the idea of budget and finances in general?
So this will come if you fabricate and articulate the education system in a way that personal finance is taught as a necessity,
Right.
and not something which is just related to the person who is going to pursue his graduation, post-graduation, or any of the degrees in the field of finance.
Sure. I think even in schools they have to start.
Yeah,
with
they
personal
should have
finances.
something related to the personal finance. So at least a person could manage his or her money in a very lucrative and economic way.
Sure. Alright, now that you're a student representative, I would like to know your take on the budget as to what have you understood from the budget, and was it a good one or was it a bad one? What do you think?
See, was it a good one or bad one? It was a neutral.
Okay.
For most of the sector, it was a neutral thing. And there were few sectors where the government represented the data in such a way that it came out as a good one, but when you dig it in, it's something a really politically driven thing.
Okay.
So starting with the healthcare. So the healthcare was something that was quite evident was going to be the quintessential part of this budget.
Sure.
So with the healthcare, they said that they'll be they pegged the data of 137% increase
Yeah.
from the previous year's budget.
Yeah.
But the thing of 64,000 crore rupees being spread out for the next 6 years
Right.
doesn't makes the rise in budget of 137% for the healthcare sector in particular.
Okay.
And also, the good part in the healthcare sector was that there are 35,000 crore rupees towards 50
Only
crore.
for Corona vaccine.
Yeah, only for Corona vaccine. So that made sense.
But that's a positive outlook as well. Because
That's a positive outlook.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the entire year was, and we also need to focus on the economic recovery. So I think that is very well, it's convoluted in both ways.
Yeah,
So
that
both.
was a good articulation with that.
Exactly.
Now, second thing that government did very good move was with the infrastructure thing.
Okay.
So with the infrastructure industry has a ripple effect
Okay.
or the domino effect.
If you could explain the ripple effect. a
Yeah.
little bit.
Ripple effect, domino effect,
Okay.
or the multiplier effect in the
Okay.
economic terms.
Sure.
So it's quite evident from the term also, ripple effect.
Yeah.
So what happens is that the infrastructure industry is meant to create substantial growth over a long run.
Sure.
What happens is when you put money in the infrastructure, you take in the cement industry, you
Yeah.
take in the electric industry,
Sure.
you take in any other energy industry,
Yeah.
you take up the logistics industry, you take up the labours, the unskilled part of your economy, the unorganized part of your economy.
Sure.
This is something which puts the disposable income in the hands of people.
Right.
And when the money comes in the hands of people, they start spending it.
Sure.
And also the borrowing rates have also been brought down, so basically people have a lot of disposable income in their hands.
Okay.
So they'll be spending more, the consumption will increase, the consumption leads to the production increase, something which goes on and goes on.
But I'd like to bring your focus to the education, because all of this, we need to understand our primary focus has always been education, because at least our generation, we understand the fact that all of this, and by the way, the opinions and the ideas that you're presenting also is somewhere connected to that fundamentally. So do you think, because we've not heard a word about the education even during the announcement, when the formal announcement was done, it was not mentioned, and we read about this in a few articles as well. What do you think? Like, yes, there has been investment made in education as well. Do you think that was substantial enough?
That was quite good enough,
Right.
but not like from my understanding.
Not up
of
to the
this-
mark?
Yeah, not up to the mark.
Okay.
But the good thing that came before the budget was the NEP,
Yes.
the new education policy.
Yes.
That was a really good move.
You think that's a hopeful move?
Yeah, that's a hopeful
Yes.
thing,
Yes.
because you won't be forced to study
Sure.
just a single subject.
Exactly.
You could pursue something of your interest as well as something that benefits you academically in a long run.
Sure.
So that was a good move.
Okay.
And,
So you find this to be a very neutral budget. That's what you're saying.
yeah, basically a 6 on 10 or 7 on 10.
Oh, he's also rated the budget now. That's great. 6 on 10. Okay, so that was Prabodh Mishra, who gave his opinion about the budget. He finds this to be a neutral budget, which I feel is a pretty rational thought, because nothing can be too good, nothing can be too bad. So, thank you for your opinion. Thank you for your time. Okay, so that was it from this week's episode of the Campus News. We got different takes. We had a professor of economics, we had a student as well who provided his take on the Union Budget 2021-22. We hope you found the content of this week interesting. If you did, do like this video, and of course share this video, because it's essential for all your near and dear ones, your friends, to know about, to get an understanding for that matter about the budget. And of course, do subscribe to our channel, VUTV. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, take care.